Tonight we're going to look at the golden section and the roots of theosophy. We're going to look at my path towards finding the golden section, sometimes called the golden ratio, golden mean, and what is really the divine proportion. I'd like to begin with a short video, Nature by Numbers by Cristobal Villa, in which you'll get a good idea, if you're not familiar with the Fibonacci numbers, golden rectangles and spirals. And I want you to keep an eye out for nature's winding number of 137.5 degrees. Now, typically when I start a lecture, I'll have a yardstick, but I'll just tell you very quickly. If you golden cut a 36-inch yardstick, you cut it at 13 3/4 inches and 22 1/4 inches. Or alternatively, think 13.75 inches and 22.25 inches. And of course, we know that a circle is 360 degrees, so if you multiply those by 10, you'll find that 360 is to 222.5 in degrees in a golden ratio, as 222.5 is to 137.5. And that is the winding number of nature, and you'll see in my lecture tonight how that works. So if we could watch the Nature by Numbers, Cristobal Villa. Basically times the golden ratio. This is a golden rectangles that are being formed. And then the golden logarithmic spirals of nature. Pentagons give rise to life, and consciousness. Now here is the primordial, the first scission. You take a line and you cut it in such a way as you're going to see you get proportion. Now some of my slides, for us to get through all of this, I may have to run through some fairly quickly, but let's take a second with this, because this is the foundation of all trinities. So you have the whole line, which is the greater, and we're going to say for the moment that that's big phi, 1.6180339, or roughly 1.618. You golden cut it, and you're left with little baby phi, which is 1 over phi, which is 0.6180339. Exact same number, minus 1. Here's unity. So the 1 becomes the geometric mean between the lesser and the greater. The 1 and the indefinite dyad, the more and the less. More than what? More than 1. Less than what? Less than 1. This becomes Vishnu. This is Brahma, this is Vishnu, this is Shiva. This is the Father, this is the Son, and this is the Mother, or however you want to look at it. In fact, the philosopher-mathematicians at Alexandria were the ones who taught the Christians how to create their Trinity. Now, of course, anytime you have a flower, most flowers are pentagonal. And there's a very good reason, because anytime you have a pentagon, you have a pentagon, and inside you can inscribe a pentagram. Anytime you have a pentagram, this whole line, when it's cut here, this could be the greater, this could be the lesser, and there's unity in between. But it fractalizes, and that's how nature works. All of nature is holographic, fractalizes from top to bottom. No matter how big we're looking or how small, you find the same pattern, scale independent, running through everything. So furthermore, if you take this portion here, that's the golden cut. This is the longer segment, this is the shorter. It continues to fractalize using the golden ratio. So here's how it works. The whole is to Plato's upper intelligible world as that is to the lower sensible world, as the world of forms is to the world of mathematicals, as everyday objects in our world are to the artifacts, if we know what we're doing, we create in art, in architecture. Here's what David Bohm said, really important, and this is in the undivided universe. The essential features of quantum interconnectedness are that the whole universe is in some way enfolded in everything, and that each thing is enfolded in the whole. Our topic tonight is how that enfolding occurs. That's what we're talking about. It is the secret of as above, so below. There's got to be a mean that links the above and the below. That's why you get trinities. There's an intermediate factor that bonds things together. So on the cover of Scientific American, you can see, are you a hologram? Quantum physics says the entire universe might be. Not only might be, that's the way it looks now. The whole thing has fractalized, and to fractal is to fracture. And it fractures through golden ratios from top to bottom. So later when we see the quarks, you will see that the quarks, which are the foundation of subatomic particles, are themselves resonating at the golden ratios. They're different functions of the golden ratio. And so the universe itself, as we see on the cover of New Scientist, is fractal. And so we see in this particular vegetable, you take any part of it, you blow it up, you'll get the whole image again. And as Blavatsky pointed out, atoms are called vibrations in occultism. That's why we have things like string theory today. Everything is a musical harmony, and that's why the waves and particles, the interchangeability, they're basically notes, or like musical notes. So in golden physics and nature's subtle mean, early last year, actually January 7th, 2010, a startling discovery was made at the very heart of quantum mechanics. Physicists at 3 British labs in Oxford, Bristol, and Rutherford Laboratory and their collaborators at a German lab empirically discovered, using Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, that the golden mean is in fact the proportional symmetry principle at the very center of quantum theory. This confirms the theoretical work of my good friend Mohammed El-Nashi, who is probably the greatest physicist alive, who has been working with the golden section to solve all the most difficult puzzles in physics. In fact, here's his paper, Is Quantum Space a Random Cantor Set with a Golden Dimension at the Core? You see the date? 1994. Twice he's been nominated for a Nobel Prize. I have no doubt whatsoever in the future will be our Nobel Prize winner. And you see a note on the subtle mean in physics. If you look down here, you'll see he's talking about the golden number, the golden section to the third power. Here in another paper by El-Nashi, the Fibonacci code behind superstrings and what are called p-branes, an answer to Michio Kaku's fundamental question. Kaku asked some really pertinent questions, but the answer is already known, and it's in here, and it's all golden ratio is the answer. The same thing has been discovered in genetics. And so the nucleotides, when they form and organize, it's all Fibonacci, they organize by Fibonacci numbers. Anytime you have Fibonacci numbers, you have an approximation to the golden ratio. Nature likes to use whole numbers. Hence, the golden ratio gets transmitted into Fibonacci's and what we'll see later as Lucas numbers. Now, John Martin, who I mentioned earlier, really the founder of all the wooden books and is the editor and really the designer of my little book, which won a first place in New York at the New York Book Show for design. Now, here's what he's discovered. If you take the orbits of the planets and you take the mean orbit, yes, they are elliptical. That's not far from a circle. You average it out over the year. You do that for the Earth, you do that for Mercury, and guess what? They're linked together by the golden section squared. Not only that, if you take the diameter of the Earth, or its circumference, average it out, you take the mean diameter, the Earth and Mercury are in the same golden section squared ratio, 2.618039, etc., 99.999%. Furthermore, if you take, now this is through observation, if you observe Venus over an 8-year period, now think of the Fibonacci's coming up here, it forms a pattern that forms a 5-fold rosette. You get a pentagram. On Venus, that takes 13 years to occur. Everything is linked harmonically throughout the entire. And here I'm with somebody that I would hope that all of you become aware of if you're not already. He is a theosophist, lives in England. He's one of the brightest physicists as well as theosophists I've ever come across. And here is his book, The Mathematical Connection Between Religion and Science. You need to have that in your library here. It is absolutely stunning, and he links subatomic particle physics with the Tree of Life, the Sri Yantra, the I Ching, not just willy-nilly, but he nails it right on the head. And then in Chaotic Climate Dynamics by Selvum, you find that weather turbulence is also all related, again, to golden ratios, nonlinear dynamics. The winding number of a hurricane, and therefore tornado I would assume as well, is 137.5 degrees. It is a living being. Now, Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff have been looking for where is consciousness, and they've been looking at microstructures within cells called microtubules. But what's interesting about the microtubules, where they're finding the quantum mechanics of consciousness, is they're made up of 13 tubulin dimers, 8 spiraling one direction, 5 spiraling the other direction. 13 is to 8, 8 is to 5. These are all golden ratios. In other words, we are tuning forks. It's all resonance. Buddha sits under the bo tree and he goes into samadhi. He goes into resonance, quantum interconnectedness with the entire, presumably, if not universe, certainly the galaxy. So here's the clathrin molecule that's at the tip of the microtubules and at the synaptic cleft. And these clathrins turn out to be buckyballs. They're fullerenes. In other words, as we saw before, where we saw the pentagon surrounded by 5 hexagons, here we see it when they discovered carbon-60. And so you see both the closest packing of space, and here's life and consciousness right there.